take down the volume a little bit? Okay, stop. So that's actually the end of the piece, and that's how, relation between sister and sister can go. So during the process, conversations on ideas and also about practical matters, such as fundraising, artistic and technical crew, always precede the actual making. Many time is taken on the most unusual places to just dream about a future piece. Subways in New York City or Buenos Aires, a swimming pool in Durham, North Carolina, a park on a sunny afternoon with my kids, endless phone calls, of course, and some email exchange lately. There are also other things to be mentioned. The control freak attack in which the choreographer intends to decide by herself all details, not coming to any solution, yielding and leaving the place, shutting doors in front of the dancers. But that is something that happens more often between Susanna and Cecilia, the other Sperling sister. Or a dancer telling us that it would be better if we would try to establish some agreement between us prior to rehearsal, as happened during the making of Bilingual Duetto, a multimedia piece that later turned into a video dance baroquely layered. So I think a certain tension could benefit a piece and make it more vivid sometimes. And I'll show you an excerpt from Bilingual Duetto. Was produced at ADF actually in the video dance class taught by Doug. And I gathered the whole international choreographers residency program participants.
that explodes, all that secret craziness that explodes. Its continuous whisper, which embraces.
Okay, so the piece itself dealt with languages and communication between people from different countries also. So, zooming out to a wider shot and answering Doug Rosenberg's question about what makes an Argentine video dance different. He did it on the phone like a week ago. So I have thought about that since I've heard the question, but well, it is really difficult to assume the eye of an outsider because I am completely involved in the process since I am a video dance maker myself, and at the same time I am a curator, producer, and eventually a dance critic. What I can do for you is to name a series of interests that have been consequently followed by different artists in Argentine video dance, which is first architecture. Quite a lot of pieces made site-specific in a diversity of locations around the city of Buenos Aires, like many of Margarita Valli's work, Paula in Suspense, Two at the Cornice, and Assault to the Backyard, and also After the Long Silence by Maria José Goldín and Pablo Barbosa. I think I'll go ahead and then show all the clips together. Then nature and landscapes. From the different artists' point of view, nature appears either as a reference of the tradition and each day life, as in the ones by the Wichi Indians group Upa at their works Catlines Taini, which means with women from there, and Tanquaj and other stories, or as a scenario for a supernatural script, as the phantom characters of the shipwreck of Margarita Valli's Agua, and water, and arena, which is sand. So I'll show the three of them on a row. Not the three videos, just the three clips. So this work, we're going to see just a part of it. Actually, it's a multimedia piece by a group of Argentine Indians that live real far away from the capital city of their province, even. Okay, so the next subject is race and gender subjects. Besides the works by UPA, this group, which is very political, focusing on their history and their relationship with the so-called Western culture. A great example of this interest is Heroica, a piece made by two video artists, Silvina and Gabriela Golder, and an anthropologist, Marita Carossi, who deal with the gender of of the gender matter of how men have been historically seen as heroes, while women have developed a silent role by which they support others, children, men, the elder, and have been barely seen as heroines. You may view that piece tomorrow at the monitors downstairs. The fourth is manipulation of the body movement using various post-production tools. Many Argentine choreographers enjoy changing the time and dynamics of natural movements, manipulating also the rhythm through editing possibilities, as Paula De Luque does in The Territory. As another example, video artist Jorge Castro changes the choreography of whoever comes to work with him, going through complex processes of nonlinear editing and computer animation. And finally, abstraction of the body. Extreme close-ups or image treatments used as a tool of taking the texture and form of the body parts, which become other landscapes. And I don't think, do I have much more time to show more, or do I have to go to 5 minutes? Okay, so let's show part of El Territorio and Danzagrafía. Okay, so that's mapping the territory. Okay, so going back to our subject and going into Argentine experience about the choreographer, directors, dialectic, I can tell you that many choreographers took the cameras in their hands. They, or should I say we, were not afraid of making mistakes, extremely attracted by the new tool they have found, which allowed them to transcend the present time and space axis, to get access to a new dimension, even new audiences. Later on, some video artists made their entrance into video dance field in collaboration with choreographers or even just dancers playing the game based on their own background, concepts, and context. Watching each other's work has been also an invaluable tool for all of us in order to keep ourselves open-minded. So the interaction choreographer-director could work as well as a distant one, just by evaluating what other artists have done in a particular case. They are distant relationships which would also work virtually through the ocean or whatever borders might be between different creators from different countries. And a final thought, going back to the title of the panel, dialectic, even though the word has lost some weight since the fall of the Berlin Wall, it seems to remain a good way of growing up from opposition, confrontation, and dialogue. How come? Karl Marx in the 21st century? I don't care about fashion. For those of us who live in underdeveloped countries, no matter how they call them, dialectic seems to be a good way to keep us on the track. Thank you. Have they gone?
You guys are so patient. It's amazing. You just sit there quietly listening. Okay, tiny little bit about myself. I am, I guess, a choreographer. I used to dance a little bit. I've been making films for about 5 years, and I guess in a way, I almost feel like, you know, the rich Canadian cousin, because I've shot everything on film, and I have film prints, and I've worked with, I guess, what you would call really big budgets. But I have to say that I spent a lot of time raising my money. So I spent like 2 to 3 years raising money, and then I spent maybe a year making the film, and then I spent another 2 to 3 years raising money. So that's, I thought I'd just say that. I guess what I try and do, I guess what I'm attracted to is work that tries to communicate something. Somebody else did this earlier. I think it was Daniel. So I guess what I try and do is communicate something in my work. And there's various levels of that. On one level, in the end level, what I'm trying to do is communicate something to my audience. But before I can do that, I have to communicate with the people who are working with me, with my team, so that they can understand what the hell I want them to do. And so what I'm going to talk about today is the different ways I've been working on finding tools to communicate with my team. And when I say my team, I mean the choreographer, the dancers, the funders, the director of photography, the grips, the editor, all the people who are whose credits come in the film besides mine. So, there's various reasons why I've had to find these tools. There's 3 reasons, basically. The first reason was that when I made my first film, the people who I went to ask for funding said, there's no way where you're going to get any money unless you show us how you see the film, how you see the film version of this choreography that you want to adapt to the camera. And so what I did was, what he suggested is you have to make a storyboard. Luckily, my sister draws very well, so I got her to come and work with me on making a storyboard of a 6-minute dance that I wanted to adapt to the camera. The film that came out of that, you will see later tonight, it's called the Village Trilogy. It is actually a 24-minute film. And I'm sorry, if I'm talking too fast, just put your hand up and tell me to slow down. I just feel that there's so little time. So the Village Trilogy is sort of an interesting example, and I use it a lot when I'm teaching because the first section was a piece created for the stage and was adapted to the camera. The second section was created in a studio and was created for the camera, but I created it in a square space and then decided where the camera was going to be. And the third piece, I actually came up with the idea for what the camera was going to do before I actually choreographed the dance. So you'll see later, it's a 360-degree tracking shot that just goes around and around and around for about 9 minutes. So I had that idea before I began choreographing the piece. So that's an interesting film, and you'll see it later tonight. So I'm not going to show any of it. Well, I'll show a little bit of it to you. So the first reason was to show to my funders, to the people who were going to give me money to make these films, and who hopefully still will, that I had a clear idea of what I wanted to see on the screen. The second reason was, like I mentioned before, was to communicate to the crew that was coming in to work with me what I was looking for. I shot my first film when I was younger, and I was 24, I think, and you show up on the set the first day, you're like this young woman who's never made a film before, and these guys who work in the film industry in Toronto, who are kind of like the big features, come in and they've agreed very nicely to work for $100 a day or whatever I was paying them, but they look at you and you're trying to direct them and they just, like, what do you know, little girl? And so I think the storyboard was a really helpful tool in showing them, well, this is what I know, and this is what we're going to be doing, so I just want to show you that I'm clear and that I know what's going to happen today, and I'm giving you an idea of how the day is going to happen and what the shots I want, and this is ideally what it's going to look like when we finish. So it just kind of brings people on board and brings them onto your team. And the third reason was that I also needed to clarify for myself what I wanted. So those are the three primary reasons why I started working with these tools, which are very common tools out there, and I'm sure anybody who's made a film has used one, two, or all of them. But this is the way I came about it, and I'm going to go through the process with you. And I'm just going to pull my sleeve out so I can look at my watch. Can we turn the slide projector on? So the first thing I did was hire my sister's friend, who was a assistant director. She'd gone to film school and I hadn't. So she was a great help. And what she did was she created the shot list for me. So this was one of the tools that I used. So shot list, day one, all shots around tree 1 and 2. Scene 1, Luke's entrance. So we have 6 shots in scene 1. We have a wide of trees. We have shot 2, a medium of trees. Shot 3, close up, feet jump in, and on and on. So this is I'm just going to show you quickly examples of different things that I've been working with over the years. So if we can look at the next slide. So this is the storyboard, as you can see, very crudely photographed by me, that my sister drew for me. And I have to say that with this piece, which I'll show you a short excerpt of, it was much easier to create a storyboard that one could follow because, in a way, it was very narrative, the piece, and you could create almost like a cartoon. So camera follows Luke. Luke looks over at tree. Close up to Luke's point of view of tree. Cut back to Luke, starting to look at Jose's real position. Swish pan from Luke to Jose's feet running in front of tree, or this framing for the last sequence. Cut to medium shot of Jose running. Cut back to feet running. Luke's hand comes into the frame. Luke's hand taps beside Jose's feet. Luke's hand taps Jose's foot at contact. Both pull away. Let's see the next slide. And this is a continuation. So we cut to the wide shot. Luke rolls over. He stands up. The wide shots continue. I didn't photograph it very well. It continues. We cut to a medium close-up as they both look at the pictures inside their shirts. You can see sort of something inside their shirts. Luke and Jose move around tree, end up on opposite sides of the tree. They turn to face each other. They start to tap each other. Jose kind of hits Luke. Cut to close-up of Luke's reaction. Okay, so let's see the first video. So this is, I'm I'm going to fast forward this a little. I'm going to ask you to fast forward as you're playing, because we don't need to see all of the beginning. I just want to show you the little section we just shot a storyboard of. This is the fast forward version, which we all like to watch. It's good, you sort of get the idea, you know. Okay. There's the shot, close-up of the hand, tapping beside the feet. There they go around the tree in a sort of medium-y shot. I think we ended up not using the closer versions of this shot. Okay, thanks. So I just want to show you a quick clip because we're going to show it later tonight, so there was no point in showing the whole film. But what I wanted to show you was how closely, in my opinion anyways, the storyboard resembles the final film. And I have the full storyboard here if anybody wants to look at it. And you literally can like flip through it, and it looks a lot like that. So that was really helpful for me to find what I was doing, what I wanted to do, and also to show people, the other people I was working with, what I wanted to do. And as you saw, I was working very much in a film way. You know, I had a storyboard, I had a shot list that was very, as if I was making a narrative film, even though the language of the film is movement. Okay, so let's go on to the next example. Oh, there's nothing up there. The next example is a piece that I made called Heartland. Tick, 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 tick. Heartland was a long story, and I will try and make it short. Heartland was a piece that a man named Bill Coleman choreographed and danced, and it was a beautiful piece that I saw live many times, and I decided I wanted to adapt it. To make a long story short, he convinced me to make a documentary about him, which I do not regret, and it's a half-hour documentary. So the dance elements, the dance segments in the documentary really had to be like squeezed. It's almost like a Reader's Digest version of the dance. The dance is about 40 minutes live, and on tape, it's, I don't know, added up all together, it's probably 10, not even 10. So for Heartland, I started using something else. Heartland was a strange situation. Bill's wife was having a baby in a month, and we just had to decide, are we going to shoot now or are we going to wait a year from now? And I decided, okay, let's just shoot now. So we didn't have a lot of time to prepare. And I had to develop a different way of working. I didn't have time to do storyboards. I thought, okay, I have to develop some kind of way to communicate with myself so I know what I'm doing and with the people around me. So I made up these strange shot lists. Rodrigo? Oh, that's not next. Okay, it's a bit hard to see. Can you guys sort of see? Okay, so the first one is really self-explanatory. We've got one. As you can see, these are my only copies left, the ones I scribbled all over during the shoot. Extreme close-up of Bill's chest. Track back slowly to wide shot as Bill goes to pray. It should say goes to pray. So you'll see this. It is that. It is an extreme close-up, and it tracks back slowly. So but I was trying to find like a visual way of representing this. So as you can see, I had this little drawing, which is an overhead diagram. The little circle is like a head with 2 eyes, and the little triangle is a nose, so we can figure out like which way the dancer is facing. And then the V is the camera, and the open end is where the camera is looking. So there's a 1 in the top V, and then there's a 2 in the bottom V, and there's an arrow from 1 to 2. So the idea is that 1's here and 2's there, and we move from 1 to 2, right? Really, really simple. But it works, because you look at it and you go, okay, I know what's going to happen, I know what I have to do. So you can either read the description, or you can look at the diagram, or you can do both. Now, it gets more complicated, and this is where I found it not to be quite as useful in, I guess, shots that were where the camera was choreographed in a much more complicated way. So for example, 3, extreme close-up of forearms from behind Bill's right shoulder. Follow hand as it goes into cross. Move towards left as Bill leans back. Lean into Bill as he bends at the waist, and go around. Follow hand as it comes through frame, and to touch chest, lean in to see 3/4 low angle back profile of Bill covering his face. Like, does anybody understand what that means? Yes? Really? And that little, like, this little squiggly thing, like, you actually get that? I mean, I've got numbers here. I've got like 1, this is camera, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the camera goes from here to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, right? From 1 to 2 to 3 to, well, sort of, right? And this is what I mean. I mean, I can't show this to the DOP. He just, I sit there with him, and we look at it, and he looks at me like, sure, Laura, we'll do what you say. But just as an experiment, I'd just like to try this. Okay, so this is my little colleague participation moment. Let's see. I'm going to pretend I'm Bill. I'm going to try to remember the dance. So, Lee, if you can read the instructions, and you're the camera person. So as she's reading slowly, do what the thing says. Okay, so the movement is extreme. So this is the movement. I'll just show it to you once. Something like this. So something like extreme close-up of forearm from behind to Bill's right shoulder. He goes into a cross, and then he goes down. I'm dancing ears. He goes down here and there. I think it's that hand, but I'm not sure. But it doesn't matter. So if you can follow that, what do you do? Okay, so
Can we read it?
Yeah, read the
Extreme close-up of forearms.
You begin behind me. You begin right there, right? See, there's my 1. See where I'm facing? I'm facing front. So you would begin like on just sort of there. Yeah. So, okay.
Okay. Extreme close-up of forearms from behind Bill's right shoulder. F-O. What's F-O? Hand as it goes into cross. Oh, follow. Move towards left as Bill something back.
Oh, you know what? I can give you the hard copy. That's why I brought it.
Thank
Just in
you.
case. Sorry, just easier. There it is.
Okay.
No.
No,
it's
this one.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's start again.
Okay, here we go. 10, 9, 8. Extreme close-up of forearms from behind Bill right shoulder. Follow right hand as it goes into cross. Move towards left as Bill leans back. Lean into Bill as he bends at the waist and goes to ground. Follow hand.
No, because you went around this way, and you're supposed to stay on my right. She said left.
I did? Move towards left as Bill leans back. Move towards left.
No, you're right. This is what I mean, right? This is what I mean. Anyways, we can stop now. It's quite complicated. So you move towards the left. Not all the way. Towards the left, but you're not actually locomoting all the way around to the left. Okay. Anyway, so to make a long story short, or actually to make a short story long, this didn't work that well. But it was a really great experience for me to sort of do this and go, okay, I have to find a better way, So I'm going to show you I'm going to show you this, a piece, but first, oh, this is crazy. First, I'm just going to tell you that it didn't turn out quite the way I'd expected. Let's show the Heartland tape.
Something. Watch me! Watch me! Watch me! Watch me! I got it! Watch me! I got it! Hey! I got something that makes me want to shout. I got something that tells me what it's all about. I got soul, and I'm super bad. I got soul, and I'm super bad. Now I got a move that tells me what to do. Sometimes it's easy. Now I got a move that tells me what to do. Sometimes I feel so nice, I want to try myself a few. I got soul, and I'm super bad. I love to do my thing. And I don't need no one else. Sometimes I feel so nice. Good God. I jump back. I want to kiss myself. I got soul. And I'm super bad. Hey! I said I'm super bad.
Okay, can we fast forward it to the next clip? So, my plan with that sequence, the amazing thing about Heartland live, and it sort of responds to something that Amy said, is that there's things you can do on the camera that you can never do on the stage. Well, there's things that Bill did on stage that I could never do on the camera, and that was really, I think that I hadn't figured that out yet, and maybe I wonder if I would go back and see Heartland now, whether I would still want to shoot it. Basically, the way Bill moved on the stage was so incredibly slow. He went through these incredibly slow transitions. All the movement that I just did now, he did, it was so slow, it was incredible. And it was beautiful, the speed of it was so gorgeous, but it doesn't work on film to do it slow because we just don't have the same kind of attention span, and it just wasn't working. And the way I shot it didn't work, and so we cut it like that. Basically what I had to realize was, okay, well, what am I trying to communicate here? Well, I'm trying to communicate a little bit of what Bill's piece is like, about him sort of being a little bit like Jesus, about the suffering, and in about a minute. So I had to sacrifice the slow, beautiful movement. The next piece is The Boxer, which is also part of Heartland, and in the slide we have again, something kind of rough, but it's the beginning. I think Heartland was a real experiment for me. It was my first documentary. It was the first time I had to work really hard and fast and cheap, and but it began a whole series of things that I've developed now. So it's The Boxer, and there's four sections: 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D. Get dressed, prep, fight, knockout. So it's a 4-minute piece, and I broke it up so that I could manage it, so I could manage to shoot it and figure out what it was like. And as you can see, sort of, I won't read you the description, but I devised this, I'm into 360 things, right? So I devised this 360 that went around Bill. And then the DOP told me that it was impossible, that I couldn't do it. And so I thought, okay, well, we'll just break it up into 90s, and we'll do 3 90s like that, sort of. But it ended up that we could do the 360. He was just lying to me. No, so we did do the 360, and I'll just show you, how much time have we got? Oh, forget it. Let's go home. I'll show you the beginning of The Boxer.
It was like something that didn't want to come out.
Okay. I just wanted to show you that shot because it's my favorite shot. Okay, so I get to stop in about 30 seconds. Can we just go back to the slides? We'll just run through the slides really quickly, and it'll show you a little bit of how some of the things that I was just talking about now have developed in the piece that I'm hopefully going to shoot sometime this year, a piece called Still Life. So if we go forward, skip this, skip that. I think we're going, yeah. This is another piece I'm not going to show you. This is part of that piece that I'm not going to show you. And then this, so this is a new piece called Still Life. And just very quickly, this is the overhead diagram of the set. So if you can go to the next slide. I've been working with this idea of overhead diagrams. This is a page from the storyboard. Let's go to the next slide. And this overhead diagram, because the whole piece takes place around a table, every possible angle basically is around the table. So I can go to the next slide and the one after that, and the one after that, and say, okay, scene 2A, we're going to shoot from 8, 4S, 3, and 2, and then everybody will know where we are. Okay, let's go to position 2 now, and everybody will know that the camera is going to be here. And if it's 2A, it's going to be a high angle, and if it's 2B, it's going to be a low angle. So it's just a sort of a really simple, practical way of trying to communicate with the crew. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Just before Eliot starts, I think we're going to push the screening back till like 7:45, so we have a little breathing room.
Hello? Hello, hello, hello? 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 I'm so glad I didn't sit here when Laura was doing her thing. Okay. So good evening or afternoon or morning to those people who are listening on the web to this. Around 1990, in December, I had been working for the better part of 8 years already on a film called Cage Cunningham, which was to be a portrait, documentary portrait, of the collaboration between Merce Cunningham and John Cage. No one had seen any footage. No one asked any questions. And there was a knock at the door of this little broom closet editing room where I had worked. I opened the door. It was a Sunday. And John Cage was standing there. And he said, "I'd like to see what you're working on." So I invited him in, and I started showing him some scenes of some things, which included this first excerpt. Okay, thank you. The next day, there was a knock at the door again. I opened the door, and both Merce and John were standing there. And John said, "Can you show Merce that shot at the bar?" They came in, and we spent the next few days, every day, screening material. And I sat with them in a space that was no larger than this table. We were all crammed in, looking at moments of their history, which had taken place over the better part of 50 years. And it was extraordinary. I wish I could have filmed that, to be with them in that room, that close, during those moments when they were younger, much younger men, watching moments of their life. It wasn't long after the release of this film, which was the following year, that the very next dance that Cunningham made, he incorporated a solo with himself at the bar on stage, where he carried a bar out to the stage and he did these warm-up exercises. It was rare that when there was a moment for me that I felt I had some influence on the work, but this was one of those moments. The history with them, the years that I spent watching mostly, and trying to use both film and video to invent, document, and sometimes reinterpret this work. Was a time where, in the larger sense of collaboration, I was left alone. And that was extraordinary to me, because my experience of collaboration up to that point and since, at certain times, was one of two people trying to hit each other over the head in some way. But here was a situation where both Cage and Cunningham, as not only advanced in their careers and in their thinking, with a large body of work behind them, had placed some kind of trust in me to be able to do something that wouldn't get in the way and that would possibly illuminate and clarify the work. I was always, during these years, honored to be in their presence and working with them. But my job had to do with the rectangle. I had no idea when I began this work what I was looking at in terms of dance. I was not that familiar with Cunningham's work, and I watched, and I tried to interpret for myself or find some way to understand what I was looking at visually. I started to rely on simple visual effects for myself, like watching for diagonals or watching where the weight of a particular dancer went. This began to build a confidence for me in photographing them company that allowed for a different kind of interpretation. Every film was different. Every time we worked together, it was different. I never relied on a method that had come before. I always wanted to look in a new way at whatever the work was or whatever the challenge was. The next excerpt I want to show you is from Changing Steps, a video from 1989, in which I had tried already by this point to manipulate the viewer's eye about what one should look at during a group sequence, and use that to exaggerate the scene through camera movement. Let's take a look.